What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Matthew Moreno, here to do a little bit of awards season recap, some awards that have been announced: Rookie of the Year, Manager of the Year. In some ways, a positive surprise; in other ways, a negative surprise. But let's start with the good news, Matt, and that is James Outman finishing third in National League Rookie of the Year voting. If any of us would have been told at the beginning of the year that Outman was going to finish third in National League Rookie of the Year voting, we all would have been over the moon thrilled.
Yeah, definitely. And, Outman, I know we're going to get into it, but Outman's season was, a little bit all over the place. And honestly, I was kind of surprised that he was named as one of the finalists in some regard. But yeah, like you said, if this was something you'd been told before the season began, it would have been obviously great news for the Dodgers.
Yeah. I mean, he put up a 4.4 wins above replacement season. And just to give context for that, if you look this up, this is all of major leagues, not just the National League. The player right above him on Fangraphs is Will Smith. The player right below him is Fernando Tatis Jr. So to give you the context of the company that Outman was living in, was remarkable. And he was a guy, Matt, that I was high on coming into the season defensively, and he has the great spring, and I'm like, okay, give this guy the chance, and he ends up getting the chance through a series of random events, and he kind of gets off to the incredible start, slumps a little bit, but the thing that was most telling to me, Matt, was his ability to bounce back. A lot of guys come up, they hit well, teams adjust, they slump, and then that's kind of it, because you can have the voice in your head that said, hey, you're just a fraud. Like, you never meant to be here. It was a fluke. But he bounces back. And again, 4.4 wins above replacement for a rookie, for a guy like Outman, who wasn't even a huge prospect. I can't say enough positively about him, and how excited I am that he's in the Dodgers' plans now, presumably for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I was a little bit more, I think, reserved. My expectations were a little bit more tempered than yours. And like you said, he got off to his remarkable start this season. He was, named Rookie of the Month.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, like, this is like, okay, like this is somebody the Dodgers, like they've kind of been grooming him, they've developed him, and he's ready for his moment. And credit for taking advantage of it. And like you said, then there was the slump that is to be expected with just about every player. I mean, all stars, superstars go into slumps, right? The difference is for those guys, typically it's a little bit shorter than maybe a rookie getting, his first extended taste at the major league level.
Yeah.
But like you said, not only did Outman come out of the slump, but even, defensively too, like there were some early growing pains. And I know, unfortunately, the way it ended for him in October with the misplay in the NLDS wasn't great, but I think we need to remind everybody that this is a regular season award, and that's voting is done before the playoffs have started. And so that's what we're going to focus on. And defensively, Outman, his reads, I thought, really improved, and his jumps and just everything, So when you look at his season as a whole, yes, there were some peaks and valleys, but for the most part, it was encouraging. And, the Dodgers, they needed it, as much as Cody Bellinger was, had struggled at the plate for them the past few years. Like, one thing you could always count on was steady, superstar level defense in center field. And Outman, I don't necessarily think he was quite at that level, at least to my true and tried eye test. But, he certainly made strides there, and he was more than adequate out there.
Yeah, going over on the StatCast Baseball Savant page, they have sort of these new stats that are batting run value, base running run value, and fielding run value. He was in the 73rd percentile for batting run value. He was in the 93rd percentile for base running value, and he was in the 89th percentile for fielding run value. 94th percentile for outs above average. That's range in center field. And so, again, those numbers all impressive, but just digging into the numbers, I mentioned the high, the peak, and then the slump. I'm just going back and looking right now, Matt. He had a better second half than he did a first half, which sounds crazy. The batting average, which I know you love, went up 28 points. He hit more home runs in the second half. He walked more times in the second half. And this was all in less games, 82 games in the first half, 68 in the second half. So the batting average goes up, the on base goes up, the slug goes up. For a rookie, it's I'm not going to say that he's like going to be a future all-star necessarily, although I wouldn't be surprised based on the season we just saw. But again, I think it's just feeling like center field after Cody Bellinger, all the uncertainty about what are they going to do? How are they going to replace him? For them to immediately find a guy in Outman who is going to be able to just kind of be plugged into that spot. He's not even arbitration eligible, Matt, until 2026. He won't be a free agent until 2029. He's 26 years old. That's a great feeling knowing that this guy's, sort of under team control for the next 6 years.
Yeah, that works out nicely for the Dodgers. It's a little unfortunate for Outman.
Yeah.
But I think to kind of circle back to your point about his season, Dave Roberts said during the year that he wasn't looking at him as a rookie anymore, and that was a testament to not only Outman's play but the way he carried himself in the clubhouse. And like you said, the mental fortitude to not become so consumed or full, let your season go completely wayward at the first sign of struggles. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think there is, at least one All-Star game in Outman's future, and honestly, it's the timing tends to be everything, or at least a significant part of players' careers. And for Outman, his season unfortunately came, in the same year as, Corbin Carroll being there with the Arizona Diamondbacks and taking off. And because otherwise, like Outman, maybe he finishes at least second, if not is potentially in more of the discussion for Rookie of the Year instead of having the runaway winner that Carroll was. And obviously he was a unanimous selection.
Yeah, and Kodai Senga is the player that ended up finishing second. Outman was the only Dodger to record votes here, so there were a bunch of other guys. You look at Miguel Vargas was expected to potentially be in the mix. Bobby Miller, you thought might get in the mix, but none of those players end up getting any votes. There were 9 players that received votes. Again, Outman received 5 second-place votes and 5 third-place votes, good for 20 points. Corbin Carroll was a unanimous first place. Senga recorded 22 second-place votes. A few other players got second-place votes as well. On the negative side of the awards, Matt, and a guy you just mentioned, Dave Roberts, he finishes 5th in National League Manager of the Year voting. You look at the results here, and I'm going to be honest, Matt. This one's a tough one for me. Skip Schumacher ends up winning it. Craig Counsell finishes second. Brian Snitker finishes third. Torey Lovullo finishes fourth. Dave Roberts finishes 5th. A pretty tight sort of case here. Dave Roberts did get 4 first-place votes. Schumacher and Snitker received 8 apiece. I have issue with Dave Roberts not being a finalist. I have issue with Dave Roberts being behind Torey Lovullo, whose team he abused all throughout the regular season. And again, to the point you just made, this is a regular season award. Matt, I think Dave Roberts should have won National League Manager of the Year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I know some of our viewers may, in the comments might remind me that I've also said the Dodgers might need to make a change at manager. And yes, I think is going to. It's the latest example as to how balanced I truly am when I look at situations. I'm the same guy that's going to sit here and say, the Dodgers might need to go away from Dave Roberts. And I'm the same, and I'm going to also say he absolutely deserved to be at least, at minimum, a finalist, like you said, for this award. And honestly, if this wasn't Dave Roberts' best season as a manager, like I don't really know what is. You'd have to go back to maybe his first year when he did win it, or maybe the second year type thing, like early on when he was kind of still getting his footing and navigating. But those teams really like had more talent than this Dodgers group did. Obviously, we've discussed the roster at length. So yeah, to not be a finalist was a surprise. First of all. Then I assumed like, okay, well, I guess he wasn't top 3 for whatever reason. He's going to finish 4th in voting. Then, like you said, it only 1 point separated Dave Roberts and Torey Lovullo. And like you mentioned, I don't really see how that's the case. And nothing against Torey Lovullo. The Diamondbacks got off to a great start this season, but then they were in the lead in the NL West. They were up at 1 point, 5.5 games on the Dodgers, like right around the midway point in the season. I think it got to that late. And then not only did they lose the division lead, but they weren't really close. And then they backed into the playoffs really. And again, I am aware of what happened in October, but this is like you said, we're stressing this is regular season performance. And so, yeah, for Dave Roberts to be 5th, I think is inexcusable, honestly, really.
Yeah. The Diamondbacks finished 16 games behind the Dodgers. Look, Lovullo being there, I think, is simply a product of the Padres being as terrible as they were, because people are like, oh man, the Diamondbacks, nobody expected them. Well, yeah, because everyone expected the Padres, and the Padres were a complete dumpster fire. And if the Padres weren't going to finish second, somebody had to. Again, the Diamondbacks limp in and, of course, make it all the way to the World Series. But to your point, I mean, we sat here at the beginning of the season talking about the Dodgers, talking about the construction of the roster, and all the criticism about the guys they didn't go out and sign, the money they didn't go out and spend, criticism of the guys that they end up bringing in, guys like Noah Syndergaard that I think most people were pretty skeptical about. Even if I wasn't one of them, even if I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt there. And we talked about, like, what are the Dodgers' realistic win totals this season, and there's a lot of people that were in sort of the high 80s as the projection. And yet Dave Roberts takes this team and gets 100 wins. And that's with all the injuries. That's with the Julio Urias situation. That's with all of the drama that came with this team. Throwing rookies out there, Miguel Vargas not working out, Michael Busch not coming up and working out, like Gavin Stone coming up and not working out. He patches all of that together. He gets a great season out of Jason Hayward. Like, Mookie Betts is moving all around. He patches a bullpen together that was terrible at the beginning of the year. I just look at the sum of, I know it's the Dodgers, and I know everybody just assumes they're going to be amazing. But if you were really honest about expectations at the beginning of the year and the ultimate performance of this team at the end of the year, I just don't see how Dave Roberts deserves to be, again, any lower than like second on this list, and yet he finishes fifth.
Yeah, and honestly, Len, if you really want to get into, nothing against Skip Schumacher, who was voted the winner of Manager of the Year in the National League, but I was expecting, once I saw the group of finalists, I was torn between Craig Counsell and Brian Snitker.
Yeah,
I ultimately, if you would have forced me to guess beforehand, I would have said Snitker just because the Braves had the best record. I think it was their second best record in franchise history. Their offense was, one of the best in baseball history and all that stuff. Yeah. And so I thought, like, okay, like that's enough. That's how this stuff kind of ends up going, right? Unless it's a real surprise team. And look, had the Marlins like won their division, finished with one of the better records in the National League, then I would absolutely understand Skip Schumacher winning it. But that came as a surprise. And so, yeah, I mean, just everything about it. The BBWA typically gets things, I think, relatively right. Like, there's trends that you can kind of pick up on with them and kind of, project who's going to end up winning this. But man, like I said, for Dave Roberts to not even be a finalist, like, was shocking. And then, to see him end up fifth, like, just the entire thing was a surprise to me.
Yeah. And for clarity there, the top three were listed as finalists. Obviously, the voting was open to anybody. So because Roberts didn't finish in the top three, he was not named a finalist for the award. He ends up again finishing fifth, 1 point behind Torey Lovullo, 7 points behind Snitker, 10 points behind Craig Counsell, and 31 points behind Schumacher. So again, Schumacher gets 8 first, 8 second, 8 third place votes. Dave Roberts gets 4 first, 5 second, and 6 third place votes. So you kind of do the math there on how many people are voting and the number of people that didn't have Dave Roberts in the top three. Again, I get that it's the Dodgers. They've made the playoffs 11 straight years. They won 100 games. That's worse than they were last year. Like, I understand kind of the lazy narratives that could have easily led someone to believe, this guy doesn't deserve all that much credit. I just think, as people that were in it and people that were paying attention and the people that were, at the beginning of the year having to make predictions about this kind of a thing, and then seeing the end result and saying, holy crap, this team got to 100 wins through all of that. I just wish, to your point, I think it was one of his better seasons, if not his best seasons as a manager. The fact that he wasn't able to be recognized, I doubt he cares all that much, but I just wish that he would get rewarded for that a little bit more. So again, James Outman, third in National League Rookie of the Year voting. Dave Roberts, fifth in National League Manager of the Year voting. We appreciate everybody for joining us. You can check out our stuff, DodgerBlue.com, DodgerBlue1958 on social media. You can follow Matt at Matthew__Moreno, and you can find me at Jeff Spiegel as well. Did I do that right? It's double underscore, right?
Yeah, it is 2. I don't know if it's displaying properly or maybe I typed it wrong here, but That's is 2 right. underscores. It's fine. You can find me from the website.
You'll find him. He's the guy that covers the Dodgers most, him and Blake, for Dodger Blue. So we're super appreciative. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day. And of course, as always, go Dodgers.